thank everybody for coming today and participating in this panel. I want to thank all of our participants for being here, and the Vancouver International Film Festival and the Forum for having us. I'm going to do a little bit of introduction about what this platform is about. We all know that digital entertainment is emerged, and we have some new players in the industry that are commissioning content. They're actually developing and producing content both online and in the traditional space as well. So I'm just going to introduce them kind of down the line here. First, we have Aaron Simpson. He is the VP of Animation and Business Development from Mondo Media. We have Prem Gil, Director of Original Production and Programming from TELUS. We have Jesse Albert. He's a producer from Xpansive Media. And we have Ali Adab from BroadbandTV, and his title is Director of Original Production and...
Vice President of Content and Partnerships.
There you go. So basically our session is going to focus on the actual content and the platform that all of these great people are using to facilitate their production and the distribution of their content. So what I'm going to do first is kind of go down the line and let everybody sort of talk a little bit more about themselves, their content, and their company. So let's start with you, Aaron.
Great. Hi. Again, Aaron Simpson from Mondo Media. We're a San Francisco-based company. I work out of the LA office, and we are, the short version is we're like the Adult Swim of the digital space. Not that Adult Swim isn't digital, but we're, so we make cartoons mostly for like teens and young adults. YouTube's our the tentpole of our circus, where we distribute, and then out from there, go try to find ways to distribute and find audience beyond YouTube. But we do horrible series like Dick Figures and Deep Space 69 that rot kids' brains. So,
oh, God.
Yeah.
Great.
You going to show us samples of that?
There will be some of that.
Do we need like a little warning at the beginning?
There will be a warning. I don't see
Okay.
any kids. I think we're pretty, yeah, we're of age. We're good.
Great. Prem.
Yeah, my name is Prem, and I work at TELUS, which many of you who are locally based here might be familiar with. We're a Canadian telecommunications company for you guys who aren't from here. And I work on one of the products called Optic TV, which is basically TELUS's IPTV local cable service. And I manage, TELUS has commitments to local programming in BC and Alberta. And my team and I manage those commitments. And part of that is funding and supporting creative talent in the two provinces, everything from documentaries to short films to live action, all kinds of stuff of local expression and interest. We've done lots of music videos. I'm going to talk specifically today about a program we're running called Story Hive, which we're going to show that video right now, so it'll explain a lot, and then we'll get into some questions.
Sounds good. Do you want to show that video?
Otherwise, my team is here. They're going to have to act it out.
There's just a delay.
Yeah.
I think he's running around back there. There we go.
Story Hive is a new lens on local storytelling. In Season 1, 20 new short films were produced in Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. A total of $200,000 in production funding. 16,000 fans helped decide which up-and-coming filmmakers got the green light. 10 projects were funded in Vancouver.
We should leave tonight. We're on a very unsustainable path.
There's some pretty cool stories out there, and the faces that we choose not to look at.
5 projects greenlit in Edmonton.
How many eyes are you're dead right now?
The strong survive, and the weak die.
And 5 projects produced in Calgary.
It's not a toy.
And now, a new season of Story Hive is coming to Vancouver, Victoria, Edmonton, and Calgary. Get ready for the web series edition. 30 $10,000 grants in BC and Alberta will be handed out to produce a web series pilot. That's when the second stage of the competition kicks in. One winner from each province will win $50,000 to produce their web series. Plus, access to a training and mentorship opportunity with industry pros. $10K to produce a pilot. $50K plus mentorship and training to deliver your web series. You've got the passion, we've got the support. Get funded. Get noticed. Get in the hive. Pitch Pitch your idea on storyhive.com. Applications open October 14th, 2014. Storyhive. Creativity connected by TELUS.
Great. And we'll definitely dig in a little bit more into that platform. I'm excited to talk about it. Jesse.
So my name is Jesse Albert. The easiest thing to do is to put it on, to say I work for my own company, which is Xpansive Media. Realistically, I do quite a few different things for quite a few different companies. So I sit on the Producers Guild Board of Directors for New Media. I work with the Canadian Film Center's Idea Boost, incubating and accelerating companies. And then, one of my clients is this little studio called Entertainment One, where I help them build their digital practice out of Los Angeles. So primarily focused on finding, acquiring, developing content for the digital ecosystem. I probably am the curmudgeon of the group because I've worked as a traditional talent agent for a number of years at ICM, and I've worked on properties like American Idol. So I kind of look at, I have a skeptic eye towards what's happening in digital only because I think there's currently not a sustainable financial model, but I'm fully committed to finding out what that model is and solving it because I've been honestly working in digital since '96.
Great.
So.
Cool. I'm Ali Adab, and I work at BroadbandTV. We're one of the largest entertainment networks on YouTube, and we work with thousands of content creators on helping them distribute and monetize that content online. Traditionally, we're a very technology-focused company on building kind of tools and services that our creators can use to ensure that their content can be as discoverable as possible and that they can kind of maximize the eyeballs that are viewing that content. And more recently, we're getting a lot more active in content production and helping our creators create compelling content and find new audiences.
Great. BroadbandTV has two great platforms. One is it Vivo?
Viso Catalyst
Catalyst?
and Viso Novi.
Yeah, so we'll talk more about those for sure.
Great.
Did you want to show your video
Sure.
as well?
Yeah.
Sure. Let's show the video for BroadbandTV. Great. So I want to get into talking about the content because I think in the end, really, content is still the king, I guess you could say. And it's about where your audience is and the platforms and tools you use to sort of facilitate the delivery of that content. So I thought it would be great to talk to each one of you about some of the successes and challenges that you've had with certain content. And then sort of roll that into what those platforms are and how you use to facilitate them. So I wanted to talk more with you, Aaron. I know you have a video as well that sort of highlights some of your content. So why don't you maybe dive into that a little bit?
Right on. So the video first, and then
Yeah, sure.
Right on.
We'll do the
If
video
you're
first
ready
as
for
well.
that, there's a
And that's the
short
last video.
1 minute. While we're waiting, I'd love to know more about the audio. Oop, we're in. There we go.
catchphrase.
Nice.
Hey, that's some real nice harmony, boys. Lay a fat beat on me.
I was like,
Out in space.
Give me that.
I like it, I like it. That was totally awesome.
Cool, thanks. So before I talk more about Mondo, I'd love to know some more about you guys. I think we might all benefit up here on the panel from that, to know who here is a filmmaker or a creator of content. All right, that's most everyone. And then who is distributed on YouTube or another digital platform, some of their content? Maybe less than half. Right, and then who's more on the executive producer funding, finance, business side? All right, that's a fair amount too. Right on. So the question was, I think, content and what we do challenges success. Mondo's been around a long time too, doing digital stuff since late 90s. And I think, I'd rather move forward through that to the last couple years and not regale all the trials and successes of stuff. But sort of post YouTube, our success has been using YouTube as like I said, the tentpole of our circus, and then finding audience and then activating that audience into doing something. Nurturing the audience. You got to make sure you're always giving them something. But we feel like we're leading the market in taking that audience and finding which one of them are willing to go on a little deeper journey. And that oftentimes means opening up their checkbook, dropping a credit card down. So we'll take that YouTube audience and try and get 5% of them to move over to Google Play or iTunes or Amazon or name a platform, and pay for a feature film version of some of our YouTube series. Like Dick Figures, we made a feature film that was very successful. It was #3 on pre-sales on iTunes, #1 on Amazon, and it's sort of, we feel like we kind of shook the system a little bit, saying, hey, a YouTube audience can pop something above all the major feature films and the iTunes that you'd normally see. So that's what we continue to do, and other success, I think, would be we had a new season of Dick Figures. It's these stick figure guys, and you saw part of them in the clip. It's like a bromance. And so we had a whole season ready, season 5, 10 episodes. These are shorts, 2 to 3 minute episodes. We said, we'll drop all these over the course of 20 weeks, but you can go watch them all right now for $10. So super fans are like, I can't wait. Okay, you got it. Here's my money. But people who don't have the dough or just more casual fans, you just gotta wait. So it was, some of that, trying to figure out how to both give away stuff on, because YouTube's free, and I think some of the new generations want everything for free, and we get that. But it's like finding the people that are like, I get it, I gotta support you. But that's the challenge I think all of us face, is like how to find dough. We know it's all about creativity and content. Yeah. Let's make some fucking money. So we're like, just still discovering that.
And when you talk about your content and creating other additional properties to that content so that you can sort of monetize off of them, you are talking about creating a lot of content as well.
That's right.
Yeah. So you're consistently, a lot of your content creators are most likely consisting content every single day on the fly. And Lee, do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I think we're different animation. It's 100% of what we do. It's a patient, expensive craft. You can bang out animation in a day, but none of you'd want to watch it. So our stuff, and YouTube, I think they recommend a video on your channel, if you have a smaller channel, a video a week. That's painful for an animator. That's like a video a month is like a high five moment. So we struggle with that. And for us, that's one of the bigger challenges. Is we're sort of in the long game. Like our stuff's like Tom and Jerry or Looney Tunes. That's lofty, I know, but our stuff, like Happy Tree Friends, have been around for generations now, multiple. So they get watched generation after generation. It's not disposable content with an expiration date. So we're in kind of for the long haul, which is painful in the digital space. Everyone's like, where's the big moment where this thing pops? It's like, it's a very slow moment. So, but yeah, but we thousands of videos and just keep screaming onward, yeah.
Nice. I just want to jump over quickly to you, Ali, because you from what I've known, like Broadband TV really started aggregating audiences or channels first on YouTube, and then started creating content, which is a little bit sort of opposite. So you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, for us, it's really about kind of building communities. So once we've kind of aggregated that content, you've got a pool of very like-minded creators, and we try to foster collaboration amongst those creators, and they can leverage each other's subscribers base to really kind of grow their audience. And once we've been able to really kind of galvanize that audience, then now kind of the next phase for us is to kind of create more compelling content that can cater to that audience and help take them to the next level. So for us, gaming, entertainment, music, lifestyle, kind of those are the core kind of verticals of content that we're focused on, and coincidentally, kind of those are really the most popular verticals of content on YouTube today. And to add to kind of what Aaron was saying, it's really such a different ballgame on that platform. It is really a long-term play where consistency is so important. Like, how do you build that audience? It takes time. It's not about just kind of uploading one video and trying to get as many eyeballs as you can on it. So for us, absolutely it takes time. And I think when you've got a platform like YouTube or iTunes or whatever it is where it treats kind of all customers the same. It's 99 cents per song or it's free. But that's not how fans are. There's different tiers of fans. There's super fans, there's casual fans. And so it's about really figuring out kind of who those segments are and catering to them and maybe taking them off YouTube, of course. Yeah.
Great. I see you smiling over there, Jessica. I know you've had a lot of experience dealing with a lot of different kind of content with different platforms as well. I know you did a show for Hulu, right? That was quite.
I've packaged shows for Sony Crackle.
Yeah.
I've done shows for Hulu. I've across the board.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's sort of your take on all this in the conversation?
So, I have to temper my thoughts a little bit. First of all, what's happening with everybody here I think is fantastic, right? Long game, but you're creating great content. Yours a little bit more of a kind of an advertising play and aggregating numbers. My challenge in all of this is I think that kind of YouTube ecosystem is great if you're 23 because the money is fantastic when you're a 23-year-old and you're earning six figures. But once you take a camera and take it from on yourself and you're a vlogger and you start to try and create content and high production value content, it becomes extraordinarily difficult, which is why you're starting to see, and I'm having conversations with a lot of these kind of high-end content creators about how do we get out of this system, right? And it's really, really challenging because at the end of the day, if you're earning a $7 CPM on YouTube, you're probably you're paying a 45% tax to Google, who are selling your advertising for you, which leaves you not a lot of money, and a lot of people don't really want to pay that tax any longer. And so they come to me and others, obviously, and say, how can we kind of take this to the next level? And it's not just me. Obviously, you saw Rocket Jump Studios do a deal with Lionsgate as well. And so there's a lot of these conversations being had about how can we get into traditional media, into film and television and stuff like that. My deal with Hulu. I don't know if anybody was here with the panel beforehand, but I did a deal with Peter Tortorici and Group M. They financed it. It was one of the most extraordinarily complex deals ever. It took a year and a half to get the brands involved, right? So branded is really, really difficult. The advantage was that I had a distribution platform in place. So if I say I've got Hulu, brands are going to talk to me, right? So you guys have an advantage when you have a platform. You can say, well, we're aggregating millions of views, and so you can kind of bring brands in. But it's a difficult process. And what you're starting to see now with Hulu, with Crackle, and Amazon, and everybody else, Netflix, is that they're making television, right? They want to be working with television studios and television creators. So what happens now to the people from the digital ecosystem, right? Whose idea was, well, I'll grow up and I'll start to go and earn money on Amazon and Netflix and all these places. And so I think that's a great challenge, right? And I think the role that I see myself and my clients playing is that we can come in and we can partner and we can marry you with a production expertise or a showrunner, so that clearly you have amazing analytics, right? You could say I have a fan base. I mean, we used to look in traditional media as somebody who, if you write a book, we want to make a movie out of it, and chances are a comic books, if you sell 20,000 comic books, you're a hero, right? So when you come in as a digital creator and you can say, I have 2.5 million subscribers, that needs to become meaningful in traditional media. And so I'm trying to partner the analytics that come with these creators with some of the more traditional kind of production values, and platform them into film and television.
Yeah, we often say at our company, we say content is king, but data is queen. That's really where it's at. And I find it interesting, everything that you say, and I actually want to sort of move over to Prem, because Prem is definitely traditional, the company that you work for, TELUS, but you're doing a great innovative platform to really kind of connect the content creator with their audience. So, what are some of the, last year you guys did the shorts version of it, and this year you're doing the web series version of it. So what are some of the successes that you've seen, with that program carrying forward?
Yeah, so there's a few things I sort of want to respond to some of the comments these guys have made as well. And while, we're a traditional phone company, we're a technology company, right? So, and I believe content is the Maharani. And
there you go.
But that Maharani still needs, people. It doesn't mean anything unless she has people to reign over.
Right.
And part of what we're able to do through StoryHive at TELUS, we do other things as well, but I'm going to focus our conversation today on StoryHive, is that we are an incubator to help kind of people get a start in understanding how to function in all of these spaces, right? So before they even get to where you are or to developing a channel, we've developed a program where, okay, you come in, you pitch your idea for, right now, or the next contest is going to be web series. You pitch a pilot, but you actually have to build a community of people who are interested in what you're doing before you even get the funding. So we're also funding people, which is very different than what other people are able to do. So you don't have to worry about the $10,000, but you do need to build your audience and really think about what your story is. And that's all going to happen through initially your pitch video and the story that you're telling. And so we sort of really see ourselves as in order for people to kind of understand this continually changing, developing digital and traditional world, which there's really blurred lines now, there's no difference. But how do you function within both? Well, this is where, if you're kind of just starting out, learning, emerging, that we will help you understand how the power of social, the power of YouTube, how to use these different tools. And then the importance of storytelling. And your audience may not be, we all know there's great films we've seen at festivals and they never get an audience, and it truly is great content. But at the same time, everybody now has the tools. There's been a great democratization of the tools, but how do you use them, and how do you use them well, and how do you get through the clutter? And it may not be 1 million subscribers. It might be 50,000 people who are really interested in your subject matter. One of the short films that we funded, it's called Directly Affected, and it's a Vancouver-based production company. The director is Zach Embry. And it was a 3-4 minute piece on the Kinder Morgan pipeline. Well, that's a very local issue. Well, these kind of things have international interests, but they really built their audience based on local people's interest in this and the impact it's having on their communities. And that says a lot. So we are bringing communities together and creators together is really important. A big part of what we do is we're building a creative directory where people can actually connect and find people within their communities to work with. The other thing we find interesting is, that I would say is one of the successes, is that people want to hang out. And we have, whether they're informal meetups or actual workshops and sessions that we're running, things like this, but where we actually get people together talking to each other is actually quite meaningful.
And do you mean like the content creators themselves or the content creators with their audience? What do you?
Both.
Both.
Both. So we just had a screening of the 10 short films we funded last year in Vancouver, and almost 300 people showed up. Both the audience, the creators, they can meet each other, because it's sort of because we're not exactly Kickstarter or Indiegogo where you're giving something back to your fans. What we can do as TELUS is, the fans get a chance to meet the projects they voted for, and it's not just your friend and family community, but how do you build that community outside of it? So it's constantly evolving. We haven't figured out what the golden nugget is, and maybe there isn't one, but there is definitely something to be said about communities and people coming together, whether it's in the digital world or not, and the building around storytelling. And that's kind of the role that we're able to play in all this right now anyways. And we see it continually developing. It's a very organic growth thing that's going to happen.
Yeah. And, do you think that, like, I think one of the common things amongst all of us that we're talking about is that it's a long journey. Like you're sort of helping out at the start, and you're talking about how you have to continue giving content, and you're talking about aggregating the audience. Like it is a process. You're working with other, bigger companies to bring in brands, to bring in, do more premium content. But I feel like that's like a common thread amongst all of us. Do you guys feel the same way?
I think there's several paths. If I'm a budding creator, I could say I could go it alone. There's lots of tools out there. I could raise money on Kickstarter, Indiegogo. I don't need any of these guys, and that's great. And I've met creators, I'm like, you don't need me. And I think that's awesome. Then I think go with maybe a digital-facing company that's digital first. They get it, they're in this, they know how to do it. I think a lot of us are them. And I think you have a frank discussion with yourself. Do I have enough of what it takes to go it alone? Do I know how to build social? Do I understand all the technology? Do I care? Will I put enough time in? Or do I really just want to make what I want to make and let some other people do it? I think that's that frank discussion. Or go into traditional. I don't think these are like mutually exclusive. You could do all three if you have the bandwidth, but you could pitch back into the TV and film networks. I think that's a real critical step for you to make, just to think like where do I fit in that array of options?
Yeah, and our sort of thinking around doing a web series, specifically Story Hive. So the idea of this Story Hive platform is that it will change sort of genres and formats as we do these different competitions throughout the year. So we did one on short films. This next one is on pilots for web series, because it's that same thing of like, building everything you just said, but also, when they're all done, they'll kind of go back to the public, and we want sort of do it like almost like a May screenings thing. It's like help us choose a pilot that we then further invest in to make a series, and then maybe they end up on BroadbandTV, and then maybe one day they'll go to you guys because they're going to do an animated version or something. Like it's all kind of we're building a new ecosystem basically that we're all kind of in it together a little bit.
And I think once you've created that content, it's like what do you do with it? And audience development plays such a key role in that. And like you said, it is very technical, and a lot of times people don't want to do kind of that dirty work that's required to ensure you're really kind of maximizing that audience. So, understanding, and for example, on the YouTube platform, they give you so much data. It's very daunting. You don't really know what to do with it. And so with Catalyst, this platform we've built, we really try to simplify all that data that YouTube gives you. What are your videos that are gaining the most subscribers? What are your videos that are losing the most subscribers? So you can understand which of your content is resonating with your audience. And are you using the right meta tags, metadata? Are you using, do you have engaging thumbnails? When are you uploading that content so that people, are you uploading it at the right times where people are engaging with that content the most? So all these things play a factor in kind of ensuring that content's going to be discoverable. And it's difficult to as a creator to really sometimes get a grasp of what needs to be done once the content's being ready to be deployed.
Right, and I've always found that data to be really helpful, even when you actually fail at what you're doing as well. And I think there's been a lot of discussion on some of the other panels about how content creators or filmmakers have this sort of failing is sort of a bad word, but I think in the digital space, you kind of look at it differently. Do you guys feel the same way, especially with your platform when you're getting all those analytics and you're giving them out to the content creator? How can they look at that content and actually, develop different kind of content to be able to sort of move forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important. You have to kind of show both sides. So we do that. We tell you which of your videos are losing subscribers, or we tell you these keywords are not resonating with your video, and we suggest better keywords that you could be using. So it's always about it's trial and error, and it's like understanding what's resonating with your audience, so you can kind of continue to focus on building that content. And that's kind of related to our content strategy. We find kind of trends within our network where we kind of figure out what type of content is gaining the most traction, and then we want to work with those content creators to help them continue to build similar content.
Right.
Yeah.
We sort of rapid prototype. That's like the most callous way to talk about content. Like it's a widget or a refrigerator or something. But we do high volume stuff. We do 40 pilots 1 year, 30 the next, and these are all lowercase p pilot, low thousands, maybe $10,000-$20,000 spent. But what that does is that accelerates your success, because we're maybe 1 in 25 pilots is worth chasing. Because when something hits for us, that means it's doing millions of views an episode. And like you were talking about CPMs. I don't know if you guys all know the math. Like I think if you do 1 million views on YouTube, like you'd be pretty lucky to get $5 grand, right? So, and we've all seen those 1 million view things. You're like, they're loaded. No, and that did not happen. They may get some subsequent deal afterwards where someone says, hey, you know what? Do you want to go it alone on the next one, or how about we do 10 of those with you at 10 grand a pop? And it's like, that's a deal. So, we just do it rapidly, and then we do analyze the bloody carcass of the failure. We get in there and look at it. But it's like Google Maps. The further you get in at one point, it just gets blurrier. You're like, this isn't helping. So we don't analyze too much, because it's painful to look at all the pilots that just miserably fail. But it's mostly that. It's mostly wallowing in failure, and then you get the 1 out of 25, and it's just you're all like, yeah, I knew it from the beginning. I was on board first, everybody.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to add, I think one of the benefits of working in this kind of ecosystem and YouTube in general is the ecosystem is creating a much more sophisticated filmmaker, right? Because at the end of the day, if you go to YouTube, that's what you're going to see, right? And there's billions of videos, so how are you going to discover anything, right? So as a creator, it's incumbent upon you to understand how to market to your audience, how to reach an audience, and even to finally target, right? So do I create content for a niche audience where maybe I have a better opportunity? How do I market off the platform? All of these things, we look at filmmakers, the larger filmmakers that we all know and go to see movies of, and they don't have to think about that stuff, right? But the up-and-coming creator is absolutely thinking about it, and that's how you're going to rise, and that's how, we're all going to find you, and you're going to spend a little bit of money on those, probably on the guys who have risen to a certain level and have taken initiative, just as you, that's how you're going to find it, and you as well. So it creates a completely different environment. And that's, to me, really exciting, too, because you have to really be passionate, not just about your filmmaking, but about finding your audience and reaching your audience.
Yeah, and that's exactly what sort of why StoryHive was created and exists, because to all the points you just made, there's so much data. Like, half the time, it's like, I don't know. Like, we're constantly trying to interpret it, and there's different ways to look at it and pull it apart. And there is that fail fast kind of just get in there and try things. But ultimately, the projects that we see being successful, it's not just because somebody's really good at knowing how to tweet and whatever. They actually have the passion and commitment to their story, whether it's a documentary or animation or whatever it is. There's something about it that they are actually personally connected to, and those are the things. Like, you look at like the ultimate successful showrunner of the day, Shonda Rhimes. All of those stories, all of those shows on Thursday night, well, they are from her heart and her interest. And it wasn't, maybe there was, I'm sure there's, they're big companies, they do lots of data, but ultimately where the seed starts is from you. And, that's ultimately, because we have people who come to us, they're like, what does TELUS want? What kind of content do you want? I'm like, well, there's lots of things we want, but you have to know what you want to begin with, and what story you want to tell.
Yeah, and I think what you want is a story that has a voice that connects with an audience that they can connect with.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, and whatever that may be, who knows, right?
But I'm going to add to that, though, is like, don't look at what's out there and say that's successful, so I'm going to go do that, right? Look, if you go to Hulu right now, one of the kind of fastest rising verticals is towards the acculturated Latino audience, meaning second generation. Parents probably are not, English is a second language for them. The kids, English is the first language. You can see things like East Los High, which does fantastically well, right? I have a lot of conversations about kind of urban content, right? There's a lot of kind of niches where there is huge opportunity. If you're going to go and do kind of situational comedy and stuff like that, there's so many people already doing it and doing it extraordinarily well that you're going to have a real challenge kind of rising above the fray, right? So, look at where the opportunity is and go there. Make sure you're passionate about it, you're doing it right, and do your research, right? What are people looking for? What do brands want? What do the audiences want? Listen, right? Our job, right, is to listen. The creator's job is to listen. Before you ever start creating, listen to the audience because they'll tell you.
We're talking a lot about the content creator and the content itself and the actual platforms used, but how do you think the audience is now consuming the content and all of this? How are they doing it now, and how do they have to change? How are they going to pay for it? I mean, you talked a little bit about giving them ancillary content, and we talked a bit about it on the phone as well. I'd love to hear from you guys and what your thoughts are on that.
I think obviously mobile is seeing huge penetration, and I think 2 years ago on YouTube it was 25-30%, and now it's going upwards of 45 to 50% in terms of the amount of content that is consumed on mobile through YouTube. So I think that's an obvious point. And then I think also, as you mentioned with niche audiences, you're going to start to see a lot of either O&O sites or apps where consumers can just consume exactly that content that they want around that specific niche vertical, rather than your YouTube or your Hulus where there's so much content and it's difficult to curate that content and figure out exactly what content is for you. So I do think kind of you're seeing these kind of niche verticals become very relevant.
And I'm seeing too a lot of money circling YouTube and cherry picking, and I kind of do that too. Like we'll find creators who are doing really well, and you just sneak up behind them and tap on the shoulder. And it's like, do you want to I could offer you things, right? But there's a lot of really big money doing that now. There's a lot of teams, they're actually just at the gate, so that all these rumored SVOD platforms, the next Netflixes, and a lot of them are going to be channeling YouTube content through there, as well as maybe traditional stuff alongside it. Maybe some people at this table are about to do that. But I think it's maybe not an amazing time to be on YouTube, but it's getting better. I think I'm seeing some people with real actual check writing ability stacking up and saying, you know what, CPMs are great, you should keep doing it, but here's a nice check and an order to do something with what you got. And there's a lot of them, which is, I think, cool.
So as somebody who's doing some of those deals, I will tell you that I'll tell the creator right out of the gate, I don't want to touch your YouTube money, right? Not interested in owning part of it. What I'm interested in is you continuing to do that. And I will come in and we will come in and support you, because I think that's a huge part of your value proposition. And the money there's really not, as we talked about, with the CPMs, there's not enough money to make it worth our while. But yeah, we're tapping people on the shoulder.
Well, I had the opportunity in June to go to VidCon. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that conference, but it's a whole parallel universe that's happening to the entertainment industry. Brad Pitt could have walked through the room and nobody would have known who he was. There was like 15,000 screaming girls for this kid. I had no idea who he was.
It is mostly girls there, isn't it? The audiences.
Yeah, mostly girls. Yeah. So when you talk about, content creators on YouTube, and you don't want to go after their revenue that comes from that. What you're essentially, and which is generally generated by advertising, which is what we're talking about, the CPMs. model for. But what you're essentially going after is the brand that they're building,
Mhm.
correct?
Absolutely.
So from a traditional sense, how does that play into what you do for some of the traditional companies that you work with when you're going after those brands? Are you working with them to sort of aggregate their audiences to build them over to more traditional properties, or what is your sort of
So
from a content perspective?
This is all kind of unfolding as we speak. Like I'm closing some contracts right now, but the play will be that they've created a brand.
Yeah.
We cannot diverge from that brand because that's what they're known for. We want to be able to leverage that brand as we create content in the traditional world,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll want to use them as a marketing vehicle for their own content, whether it's an unscripted or scripted or MOWs or what have you. And does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, because what I wanted to get into then was the additional monetization streams, which would be to pay for that content as well as then create content on more traditional platforms as well. So that's kind of, sort of
They're already earning, right?
Yeah.
Most of the people I talk to are earning, 6, some of these people are earning more than I'll earn in maybe even a lifetime.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, you talk to somebody who's earning he's earned $5 million, right? So, and that's great. Where I'll help them though is, we can help them into, I'm a huge proponent of publishing, for instance, and things like that. By not tapping into their current revenue stream, I can come and work with you so that when you find somebody who elevates, I can help you take them over and you.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to it not from, just from the TELUS sort of, we have an IPTV platform. There might be people here who subscribe to our service. It's called Optic TV. And because we have subscribers is why we can do things like Story Hive. But we are, like everybody else in the industry right now, we're looking at things every day of okay, so we're not a broadcaster. We don't own any, traditional Canadian television channels. We don't have an SVOD branded service, but we have an entertainment ecosystem that we're continually wanting to evolve and make it, what's the value proposition back to the audience and back to the customer. So we have all the channels. We literally have tens and thousands of hours now of VOD. We have, applications where you can look at every single TED Talk ever on your TV. You will see things like SVOD things coming onto our service, but we're not actually the ones building them. But we are, we are the pipe, but we are also the designer of your experience. But this is all changing, right? The models are shifting. Our Canadian system is still, in terms of funding for production, is still mostly coming from the Canadian Media Fund and Telefilm and broadcasters and things like, companies like TELUS and the other folks. So there is so it's sort of the hybrid of the, how much are people, willing to pay? What do they get with that service? And, the CRTC just spent 2 weeks having a conversation on this with a lot of people. So this is a continual, I think we're all in the conversation together. I think just from that purely traditional distribution cable world, it's not what it used to be. I think we are in an interesting position at TELUS because we are, we're not an over-the-top service, but we have an application where if you're a subscriber, where you can watch pretty much everything on demand and some live TV, and other things are continually evolving. But this is, everybody on YouTube still, a lot of people, and you guys can speak to this better than I can, they're still trying to get back into, they want to deal with Adult Swim or ESPN or whatever it is at the end of the day, not just online, which is still kind of interesting, right?
I think definitely very much in the early stages, but you're seeing kind of the attempt to kind of bridge the gap between the traditional world and the digital world, and even with YouTube, taking their YouTube celebrities and then buying billboards in Times Square so they can kind of get exposure to kind of the mainstream audiences. But I think that's a challenge, and for us, what we've tried to do in that realm is we just announced a production deal with Fremantle Media, where we're taking top talent within our network that have amassed kind of large audiences, but then we're mixing that with kind of traditional formats that Fremantle has created, such as Family Feud or Idol and X Factor, and I think part of the interest there is obviously brands want to associate themselves with content that that has potentially kind of more wider appeal. And so like, how do you take that YouTuber that is creating that content in his living room, but has such an engaging audience, and how do you kind of try to augment that content so that you can build a healthier ecosystem where brands who are traditionally spending that money on television will be like, oh, I would love to spend this money on YouTube and work with this creator that has such a strong influence.
Great. We just have a few minutes left, so I kind of wanted to maybe ask each panel member, what's in the near future for them and what they're focused on in the next 6 months. I know Prem, the application is coming out. Is it October?
Yeah, so you can start, basically how it works with Story Hive is between October 14th and November 3rd. People can go in and start building their pitches, and then they all get mass published. And then there's a voting cycle, and then we announce the winners. And in the spring, when all the projects are done, they'll go back again out to the public, and then we'll choose one that will get funding. So yeah, kind of an exciting time.
Great. What about for you, Aaron?
Mondo's involved in a bunch of new things that are being announced or have already just recently been announced, but one is going on up here. It's Bite on Mondo. It's a collaboration between Blue Ant, YouTube, and Mondo Media, where we're doing 30 pilots, all animated, again, aimed at the teen young adult audience. We're still taking pitches. There's a team in Toronto that's spearheading that. It's not out of the LA office, but it's looking for the next amazing comedic voice. So that's going on for us. And then we've got a sketch animated TV series we're about to announce that'll roll out in U.S. and Canadian television sometime later this year. And just dreaming of bigger futures for the digital space. Yeah.
Great. Jesse, I know you can allude to some of the stuff that you're kind of doing, but
the next 6 months, a vacation would be great. Building a slate. So I'd like to have probably a good 10 to 15 properties that are being developed, and we'll be financing scripts and.
And is that series based or film based or digital?
Both.
Well,
Both.
Great. And
on the broadband TV front, I mean, we're going to continue to build tools and technologies that creators can use to become more successful online. And one kind of module that we're working on is to facilitate the ability for brands to connect directly with YouTubers or creators on campaigns of all sizes. So we want to kind of help foster an ecosystem to allow brands and creators to connect. And then also on the content production front, we announced a fund earlier this year in November that is going to be used to allocate towards producing premium content for creators in our space. And so anybody that kind of learns about multi-channel networks and what companies like us do, if there's interest to join our network, then you could be eligible to become a part of these initiatives.
Great.
Yeah.
So we're going to open up the conversation to the audience and take some questions. There's a few coming up. Right there in front.
Hi, Prem. Haven't seen you in
Oh, hi, Pia.
years.
I
So
know.
good to
Nice
see you again. I worked with Prem in 1995.
We were so young back then.
You haven't changed a bit, nor have I. Got it? Anyway, the difference between you said something really intriguing just a few minutes ago, and I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit. Brands connecting with creators. Fill that one down a little bit into more lay language.
Sure. So one of our brands is called Candesa, and it's a lifestyle brand. And essentially, on YouTube, there's just a massive amount of content creators that are creating content around health, beauty, fitness, hair and makeup, whatever it is. And there's obviously, large brands in this space and that are seeing that these creators just have amassed really, really large audiences and are really, influencers. So we want to facilitate a way that a Maybelline or similar brands can tap into these audiences that these creators have created, and it then helps the overall ecosystem because in addition to the CPM that you'll get for views on that channel, that brand is now paying that creator to produce and to integrate their brand within the content. And there's really kind of innovative ways you can do it. So in in the lifestyle category, it's about maybe talking about the product and using it. But then in the gaming space, we will have like a bunch of Minecraft players, and they'll build something in the game that's related to a brand. So if it's a Ford, they'll build like a Ford car in the game, and you can drive it around. So really cool ways that you can actually integrate content with brand.
By what factor will you expand your audience? The audience that the brand with its people came to you with. How much of a factor can you expand that audience?
I think it's about the brands kind of recognizing exactly the true reach that these creators have and wanting to kind of tap into it. And so we could, work with a brand and a creator and tell that brand exactly, how much exposure that they can expect to receive, because we have the data that says, each of their videos gain this many views or whatnot. So we're able to really kind of dial in and kind of let them know exactly what they can expect. If there is some sort of brand integration within their content. And not only do they have lots of reach on, obviously, YouTube, but on social, and so the reach kind of really spans across a lot of different platforms as well, and it's great exposure for brands.
Link it together.
Yes.
And send it out as one.
Yes.
What format?
Well, I mean, for us, YouTube is the primary platform where we distribute the content, and then we utilize, of course, social and other means to continue to drive traffic to that, but it really depends on the platform. I mean, this is relevant to any other platform as well.
So YouTube is the foundation?
In our world, it is. Not in everybody's world, but in ours, it is.
They've only got 20,000 ad salespeople.
Yeah, with 85% of online video market share.
Yeah.
Great. Next question. Up here.
Thanks, Selena. Great discussion, guys. Thank you. I just wanted to, Ali, you said something that really resonated with me. You're talking about the different categories of fans. You were talking about super fans and casual fans. In my case, we just ran a very successful Kickstarter campaign, and there were definitely a bunch of folks that were just kind of popped up, and they were real signal boosters for us. Tweeting and sharing, Tumblr, posting, and all kinds of amazing stuff. So I guess what I'd love for you to do is maybe elaborate a little bit more about your experience in in working with the different categories of fans and how we can best leverage some of our super fans as we move through development, pre-production, production, post, and distribution.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of tools out there that you can use that will show you kind of who the influencers are that are viewing your content and engaging with you. So like in the social media world, it would be, let's say, Hootsuite. And in our world, around online video, in our platform, we actually are able to show you on your YouTube comments who's commenting on your video and what is their social reach. And so that you're able to really identify who from your audience has the potential to help expand your exposure, and that plays a huge role in obviously your content being discovered. And I think on the kind of monetization aspect of it, when it comes to the super fans, it's about really figuring out what it is that is resonating, with them. And so, like for example, a musician, I'm sure. It's not about just listening to the music, but they want to go to a show or they want to buy a T-shirt, and you can figure out how to really kind of bundle your content with other ancillary kind of items, and then your average revenue per transaction is $20 instead of 99 cents on iTunes. So you really have to. It's definitely a big opportunity, and it allows you to really kind of connect directly with your fans as well.
We have another question down below here. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, I don't know if this is too off topic, but when you apply to certain, like as a producer, if I'm applying to like the CMF or Bell Media, they require like a digital media component. And just like a neophyte to the digital media creator world, I would just love to hear from the panel, like where would you, or what would you recommend, like the first place I go, like to get advice or even to approach a creator to help maybe create the best sort of digital media platform?
I can answer that a little bit. Are you talking about like to make your project happen?
Yeah, well,
Right.
To be eligible for the funds.
For the funds, yeah.
You have to have a digital media component as well. And someone who's kind of new
Mhm.
to that whole world, I mean, I've been consuming digital media on my phone at home my
Yeah.
whole life, but like to approach creators, and
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, I guess there's a few sort of angles or opportunities. So within the, if you're locally based, within the Story Hive world, we actually have a creative directory that's public. So that's a way to kind of connect with people and see their bios and see if they've had funding from some of these sources, or, there's a lot of these funds still require, what's interesting, they do have digital only components, but a lot of them still require connections back to a traditional broadcast license. So it's kind of trying to get to know that system. I think there's lots of panels that are probably around these topics. I think there's one tomorrow maybe here on some of that stuff specifically, but there is, I think it's just a matter of like finding out what are the projects that you like, who are those producers, but there's no sort of like, here's the place to go other than looking at their websites. But there is, what we're trying to do specifically with that creative directory that we're trying to build is a way to get people to kind of start talking to each other and ask each other those questions and kind of help create a bit of a forum and a space for that.
If you
It
want,
seems like you know the answer to this. No? Okay.
Oh, I was going to
Okay.
say, if you want, I can speak to you. I've actually, for the last 4 years, have been a recipient of the Bell Fund and the CMF and have put together those applications. And I can speak with you after and give you some tool tips on what to kind of put in there if you want.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, I just have a question.
Yeah.
Just in terms of advertising and demographics. So obviously, advertising drives the demographics, and when you're looking at the digital landscape, and this may speak to what Jesse's saying about maybe YouTube is working in some places but not others. I typically do sports, so that's a pretty great place for digital. But I have something for seniors, and so it's a completely and the children of people who are seniors, so those that are like 60s, in that kind of space. So I am starting, but I just don't understand if there's if there's room for that in the YouTube, because how many of them are actually doing that? I know that there are some, but I just would like to get your feedback on that.
I think you're going to probably have to walk around and show each senior
It-
how to get onto YouTube first.
Well, so it's not for them.
I'm
We're
kidding,
talking
come
those that are-
on. I am a senior.
Well, but we're talking, but some will, and if that is because advertising is where the money is. So, and to me, I'm like, that demographic is the one where there's, the population shows that that's where most of our demographics are.
Mhm.
So, are the advertisers following that demographic, and are they going online? There's the question.
Well, I think the advertisers are changing what they're doing, and we used to, think there still are lots of pharmaceutical commercials for different drugs and whatever on, but there's you might see a company that does specializes in some pill for cholesterol, just support the development of a series about heart disease and lifestyle, and that's where, so the advertising dollars that in terms of going back to the creators are kind of shifting. So, I think you see more and more of that, what, we call branded content. Sometimes it's directly related to the brand, sometimes the brand has nothing to do with it. Like a lot of stuff that Red Bull Studios is doing has nothing to do with, having an energy drink. But it's just a different way of how they're kind of just supporting. If you're looking for the funding, that's some of the stuff that I'm seeing changing. But
I think the pharmaceuticals are extraordinarily difficult, and we had this conversation a long time ago. Is like because they have to have all the disclaimers, and they had no way of getting those disclaimers into video. But
if they're not talking about the drug, is
Right.
what I'm talking about. So they're just talking, here's, preventative stuff, which actually they don't want us to do. Maybe I'm just making this example up because they want us to take their drug, perhaps. But at the same time, it's just a way to their connection to something, right? Is not so that they avoid all that stuff.
No, and there are brands. I mean, obviously, who the good brands aren't even going to talk about themselves, as you heard in the panel beforehand, right? So they'll talk about they want to reach, Ford may want to reach the kind of public radio listening soccer mom, and so they're going to be very supportive of content that kind of aligns with their brand messaging. But I think I honestly, like all kidding aside, I think it's really hard to find to really kind of hone down on that audience in the online space. I don't think that there's people necessarily catering towards it, right? Maybe that's an opportunity. I just don't know the analytics. Well, it's CBS in the US, right?
One platform that is doing really well for seniors is Roku. The majority of their demographic is Roku.
That's interesting.
And you can push advertising through your video content onto Roku as well. So you should look at that platform. You're welcome. Over here.
Great discussion.
Can you just use the mic? Sorry, we're recording.
Sure.
So.
Great discussion. Philip Chua from Magentic, and I'm really kind of interested. Obviously, there's a lot here around specific genres. I'm interested in documentary. There's clearly some, Prem, on the your platform, you've supported documentary.
Yep.
Where in the other space around there have you seen successes using documentary? Is it, clearly Mondo is so focused on the youth market. There's a lot about the youth market. How can we use YouTube, Vimeo to kind of attract people for a documentary audience?
I think Netflix is investing in a lot of docs right now. I will say that. There needs to be more. But I don't think, do you guys have experience with it?
Yeah, it's certainly, we see a demand for it. Especially as other broadcasters who traditionally funded a lot of documentaries are kind of shifting what they're doing. I think, it's really interesting what Zach Embry and his team have done. It's just sort of the beginning of a conversation that they've done through something shorter that maybe will build into something bigger. And how it's different, from news. What I see on YouTube is they sort of do these documentary series called The Game Changers, and it's everybody from Anna Wintour to Bill Gates. It's sort of the profiles, and I end up watching those things because it's just sort of oh, these are people I have a curiosity about. But that's definitely, at least in terms of what we're doing at TELUS, we see it as an opportunity, and it's not going away. There's there's some stuff on Crackle, but it's still Jerry Seinfeld is doing it, not Philip, right? Go ahead.
There's one model that we're playing with. We haven't executed on it yet, but it's a colleague of mine came up with this idea where the producers and the distributors, we know that we're going to make a feature like something, whether it be for documentary in your case or us it be an animated feature, but the audience doesn't know that, and we start releasing short form content to kind of percolate it.
Okay.
And then there's that big aha moment, but you've known it all along, that we're about to drop the doc, and so obviously it's a big play, it's a long play that you're doing, but it's something we think we're going to chase.
I think you're going to see a lot more opportunity for docs as well. Vice obviously is doing a lot of docs, and those are online. Watch HBO, for instance, as they start to go more OTT. There'll probably be opportunities there. Clearly there's such a demand for it.
Yeah, and I think Vice is a really good example of how they take, they'll take a doc, but then they'll create short form content around it on YouTube, and then it will ultimately lead to being able to go to their own and operated site to watch more related content. So they've done a really good job of understanding how you can kind of cut that content in a way where it's more digestible to kind of the YouTube audience, but at the same time, it has to make sense. YouTube might not be the best place to house it, and like you said, you want to always look at other platforms that may be more relevant, like Netflix.
Do we have time for one more question? Okay, one more question at the very back there.
Hey, thanks very much. You guys have talked a lot about YouTube, but Vimeo was just brought up once, and I'm just curious about why it's not a more relevant platform in this discussion.
So I've done a little bit of the direct-to-consumer play. I consulted for a company that did that, and that company's no longer around. And a lot of those companies gone by the wayside, right? The challenge there is somebody's got to spend a lot of money on marketing to kind of drive eyeballs to it, to justify it. The flip side of where that kind of play can be successful is if you look at the Camp Dakota model, where you had the YouTube celebrities who came together, created a film, and just as I think you said with Dick Figures on iTunes, they were going neck and neck with Dallas Buyers Club during Oscar season, right? So to me, that says that with the right social awareness and and really utilizing your social graph, you can put your content pretty much anywhere, right? But to me, Vimeo it's just another distribution channel, and your challenge is getting people to that platform, and creating premium differentiated content that you can't find anywhere else, so that people will want to pay for it.
And I think one differentiator that Vimeo had initially was that you could upload higher quality content to it as opposed to other platforms, but now you can upload HD content to YouTube, so that differentiator is not there anymore.
And the rules aren't as stringent too on content, on the content of the content. We've had some real racy stuff, as you might imagine. And some of it was too racy for YouTube, and it got booted. So we uploaded it to Vimeo, and we did a couple million views. Yeah, the title of the show was Boobs. We're high class.
I'm hanging out with you.
Yeah. But yeah, so but we feel the same. Like we sort of
The sequel.
hey, you might have a offer in your inbox here. But yeah, we try and just use YouTube as a kind of a lighthouse to shine on other platforms. And that's the same thing. It's like if we want to aim it at Vimeo or VHX, which I think Camp Dakota used, these new up and coming, I think you do some of that stuff too.
Yeah.
It's places you can go rent, buy, subscribe, and that's what we do. Yeah.
But and that's the perfect example, though, right? You work with him, and he's got the marketing muscle and the prowess to support your property on Vimeo.
I have lots of opinions about Vimeo, but we don't have time.
Dunham is doing what you were describing before right now, I think, as you described it, the cross
Well,
platform,
it's the
different valuation, total saturation for around her new book. Wouldn't you agree? She's got Ask Lena on.
Yeah, I mean, there's no longer like you make your film, you go to festivals, then you go theatrical. Like everything's collapsed, right? So it's now looking at all those platforms and looking at where your audience is and your distribution strategy, and then going there first.
That's great when you're Lena, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of.
The grade 2 version and so on, and it goes on to perhaps actually literature at the end of the day, or a great piece of cinema. But it can start, and give everybody the opportunity to try and to express. And so that this is the culture right there. Everyone gets heard. Do you guys know anything about remarketing? Can you explain that to me?
We can, but the only thing is we have a panel coming up. Are we out of time, or can we answer the question? One more question. So can we get it in mic so everybody can hear the question? Sorry.
I would just say quickly on the, keeping that audience engaged, to a little bit what you're saying, Pia, is around, we encourage our people is like, okay, you built your audience, you got one of the $10,000 prizes. Now just like give them sneak peeks into what you're doing while you're in production. Like here's a toolkit that we will give you, and make those Vine videos or those Instagrams, and keep doing that.
There's going to be a panel here, I want to say Friday, or a keynote by Bernie Sue. Is Bernie even in the room? There you go. That's the man, right? If you want to learn how to do that, it's a panel. Go listen to
Wave
Bernie.
your arms, I'm
He's
blind.
done it multiple times.
Oh, a beautiful blonde. No, it's the guy in the baseball hat.
I don't know if
Okay,
everybody
fine.
heard your question. What was your exact question?
Yes, please. I was told about something called remarketing, which basically bounces back audiences to your site to grow exponentially your hits. Do you know anything about that? And that involves sponsors, attracting sponsors, and so on and so forth. And it's a new concept to me, but it seemed quite logical.
I've never heard it
me neither.
defined as such. I mean, I can tell you that in the past, we used to push audiences to places at certain times because you knew you could monetize it better, and you may have channels where you can't monetize, right? So I've worked with, when we launched Chris Daughtry when I worked for Idol, and we would take, his MySpace audience and push them to a site where we had, advertising. But, it sounds like what you're talking about really is traditional kind of transmedia and utilizing all your different platforms. But the concept of remarketing to me is...
We do something where we look at videos. If we have a topic coming up, let's say it's a baseball video or something, we go look on YouTube with the keyword, find what's done 5 million views or more, and then take that title of that video, go search in YouTube, or go searching Google, find which sites embedded that video, and you're just reverse engineering their success. And then then you try and find out, is that a site where you can submit a story and really work on targeting those guys. It's just reverse engineering their
Matt?
success. Yeah.
Give Matt 2 seconds, because,
Okay,
yeah.
2 seconds.
Sorry. Remarketing, it's a media term. So media agencies do that. What they do is they'll cookie you. So if you've watched a video or you've gone to a website, they'll know you've gone to that website, and then they'll serve you content on other websites knowing what you've watched.
It's called creepy, I think.
Yeah, right. The NSA does that as well.
Yeah.
And on that
iTunes
note,
just did that with YouTube.
Yeah. So I wanted to thank each and every one of you for participating.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I also wanted to thank Story Hive for sponsoring this panel as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.